It's the book club for kids.
It's a book club for kids.
It's the book club for kids.
It's the book club for kids podcast.
Hi, I'm Kitty Felde. We spoke to writer Laurie Halse Anderson a few weeks ago about her Revolutionary War novels. But there was more to the conversation about poetry, track and field, and, of course, writing. For this bonus episode, here's some more from Laurie Halse Anderson. So your father was a poet. How did that influence you as a writer?
Oh, I think it was a tremendous influence for me. He was published once in a small chapbook, but he wrote throughout his entire life. And he would still, at the end of his life, weeks before he passed, which is just a few years ago, he'd pull out 40-year-old poems and look at them again and say, and you could see, and he would still tweak things a little bit. I think that was probably... first of all, he showed me how to love language. And secondly, that we're always, I don't want to say unsatisfied. We are always striving as writers to try to make things better.
So Chains and the books that followed grew out of another book that you were doing research for. How did the Revolutionary War come on your radar screen to begin with?
Because I have a very short attention span. I was in an archive in Philadelphia researching Fever 1793, and I was a little bored and I needed to stretch my legs, so I was wandering through the stacks and I came across a new book, then new, about Benjamin Franklin, who I loved him so much. So I was like, I want to read about him. Except this book had information they hadn't told me when I was in fourth grade, specifically that in addition to all the great things he did, he also held people in slavery his entire adult life. That one fact overturned my life, and it overturned my understanding of what it means to be an American, because it overturned my understanding of American history. So I started exploring what was the situation for enslaved people during the American Revolution, honestly, just so I could understand it. How do we fight a war for freedom when 20% of our population was held in slavery? And 20 years later, I've got a trilogy.
And you go back and forth between YA, contemporary, historic. Is this just to keep the juices going?
That's one of the glories of being a children's author, because I think adult authors are really pigeonholed in a way that we're not. I can't imagine writing the same kind of book every time out. I would have quit a long time ago. I'd go back to work on the farm. So for me, it's I have a restless mind, and I'm absorbing one kind of subject while I'm working on the other, and then I switch back and forth. I think it took longer for my career to gain momentum because of that, and it was totally worth it.
My husband will want me to ask, what was your best track time in high school?
I didn't run track. I threw shot put. My nickname in high school was Moose. I became a runner as an adult. I am a plotter. Like a plotter with my books and a plotter on the road. I love it. I love running. I'm in no danger of setting any records, but I have fun.
You are incredibly prolific, but how long does it take you to get a crummy first draft down?
Oh, golly, as I'm struggling with a first draft right now, right? It has everything, there's so many variables. Even when you are as fortunate as I've been in terms of my career, I still spend about 5 to 6 months on the road every year. That's part of this career path, which is, it's often very invigorating, and hanging out with readers and meeting kids from all over the world is really important to me. So that's that, but you have to recognize that that's taking away from writing time. Once all of the research on once the preliminary research on a project is done, I can bang out a messy, horrible first draft in 3 to 4 months. It's better if I stay submerged in the story and set ridiculous goals, like 15 pages a day, 20 pages a day. And because also one of the problems, I think, when you've written a couple of books is we have this tendency to overthink, especially early in the process, is when you don't want to be thinking. You just want to be flowing. You want the creativity just to come, and you're like, I don't know what I just wrote. I don't even know where that came from. And for me, if I'm writing intensely and I'm submerged in the story, that's better. And then once that messy, horrible first draft that nobody ever sees is done, then I can start thinking through and using my craft tools.
This episode is funded in part by the D.C. Commission on the Arts and Humanities, an agency supported in part by the National Endowment for the Arts, and by a grant from the Nora Roberts Foundation. Thanks this week to our producer Ilse Setziel. Jonathan Jensen created our music, and Emma Steinkellner created our logo. And thanks, of course, to our writer, Laurie Halse Anderson. We'll be back again next week with a new full-length episode. I'm Kitty Felde. Thanks again for listening.